This is Ion Hong Kong with Key.
And this is Harminder, and we'll be discussing the top news for the week involving Hong Kong and China.
Welcome back to the second part. And so now we will show you a clip of James Hon.
In May, June the 4th is a day we will never forget. That's why we will keep on fighting for Hong Kong's democracy, fighting for China's democracy until we get it. Ladies and gentlemen, we need your help, we need your support. Join us today, 3 p.m. at Victoria Park. We will march to the government headquarters to show our protest. Ladies and gentlemen, united we stand, divided we fall.
Why you speak in English?
And thank you for speaking in English.
Sometimes I do, because in Causeway Bay sometimes we see foreigners, walking by, and whenever they look at me with puzzled eyes, I'll try to explain it to them in English.
Thank you, because I've told multiple political parties every maybe half hour to an hour have one speech in English just to engage the rest of it. Because that's one big problem I see we're having, is that if we want to engage that small minority, it's still a minority of the population into the politics of Hong Kong, they need to understand where everybody is. And whenever I see protests, it's only in Chinese, and everybody's like, what are you protesting about? I don't know. One bilingual placard is not that hard to make. It's just laziness, in my opinion. But Key, you want to ask about that speech?
I think that the speech made on around June 4th.
Yeah,
right?
June 4th says. I was there trying to appeal to the public, to get into Victoria Park to join the rally, and so that we can fight for democracy. And it's what we do every year.
But do you think that it seems that every year we do the same thing? What do you think about the effect of that?
Is it
very effective?
To some extent, it is effective, because we have to keep the spirit going. We cannot just in 1 year suddenly do nothing, and people will start to forget.
Right.
So the main idea is to get people remembering, get people keep on fighting for what we started.
I think in recent years, apart from the one in Victoria Park, people are starting to go to Tsim Sha Tsui because some local group advocating that, we should go to Tsim Sha Tsui. What do you think about this change? People seems that more and more people going to Tsim Sha Tsui this year.
I respect everybody's actions. They can do whatever they like. We are still in Hong Kong having freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. But still, I believe strongly that the Victoria Park candlelight vigil has to be continued, because it is not only raising the awareness of Hong Kong people, it's broadcast all over the world. And Hong Kong is the only place in the world that we have such large-scale candlelight vigil to remember June the 4th massacre.
And the only place on Chinese soil
that
can remember that event.
So it has its significance.
It's also, there are quite some voices saying that Hong Kong should, take care of ourselves first, but not to meddle with the matter of China, because we don't have democracy. How could we push forward for the democracy in China? What do you think about that?
I agree. I agree to a large extent to that kind of thinking, because we Hong Kong people, up till now, we know that we cannot change what is going on in China. But we can still have some say in Hong Kong's systems. And so we can now have to focus more on Hong Kong issues,
Right.
rather than hoping that China will become democratic first and then Hong Kong will get our democracy. That is getting more and more impossible.
Right. So I think before 1997 or in the 80s, and when Hong Kong was talking about returning to China, and people believe that the good system and if Hong Kong is we have the democracy more than China, or we have better values and rule of law in Hong Kong, we can promote it to China. Do you think that after 15, 16 years of the handover, do you think it's realistic?
It's getting more and more unrealistic. During the first few years after the return of sovereignty, still we have quite a large number of people, including pan-democrats, who believe that China is still their country. They have to be patriotic and they have to try to push China's democracy. And then if China is good, Hong Kong will be good. So this is what they say.
Right.
But gradually we have experienced more and more intervention from Chinese Communist government, and we are experiencing less and less freedoms in Hong Kong. Right. So what we should now focus on is still Hong Kong's issues first. Don't fantasizing about China's democracy.
Is it because that's why your organization called Defend?
Yeah, we are. I'm the founder and spokesperson of the League in Defense of Hong Kong's freedoms. Yes. Hong Kong's freedoms first. And these are the basic values we have to protect. The core values in Hong Kong.
Right. Now, we see the education system gradually, well, not gradually, now it's openly being told that you must change the way you educate our young people here, because that is what is to blame for the umbrella movement / revolution.
I call it revolution.
Call it what you may, but that's what they blame it on, because they're saying that there's not enough patriotic education, there's not enough Chinese history, contemporary Chinese history, and so on and so on. All right. Now they want to, especially in CY Leung's policy address, there needs to be exchanges between schools and students on the mainland and here and all that. Now, where do the teachers stand on this? Do they think it's a good idea, bad idea?
China has never stopped trying to change Hong Kong's education system ever since the turnover. And what they are planning is that all Hong Kong students should be educated in a way that they will eventually be useful to the Chinese Communist Party. And this is what they, in fact, blatantly expressed recently in one of the youth group. Their aim is to become useful to the Chinese government, and they have never stopped this. And about 2 years ago, remember, they wanted to introduce the national education curriculum,
and you had a hunger strike.
Yeah, that's when we realized the danger is so imminent that we have to do something. And so I, with the other students and parents, we started this movement, a campaign to fight against the curriculum, and we succeeded finally to shelve the curriculum. But do you think the Chinese communist government will stop?
No,
they never stop. They are trying to introduce brainwashing elements in all arenas, including the sister school partnership system, and there are still a lot of tours to China, and also the recently established China's Hong Kong's youth cadet, and we can see that Hong Kong students are in fact in danger And the teachers, fortunately, teachers in Hong Kong see the danger. And since we educators advocate that the most important thing for students to learn is the critical thinking, is the independent learning, and is the knowledge they have to get. So if we grasp this philosophy, right, critical thinking, critical mind is the most important, then teachers will know how to educate their children. And they will not be affected by any brainwashing elements they want to introduce.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
What's so bad about Hong Kong students learning about their country? What's so bad about them knowing the how much China has evolved? Well, evolved.
Progress.
Progress. That's probably a better word. Evolved isn't. Progress since the 1970s and so on and so forth. What's so bad about every country does it? United States teaches its citizens all the way from 1776 onwards. Canadians do the same thing. UK does the same thing. What's so bad about Hong Kong people doing the same thing?
I'm all for learning Chinese history. I'm all for Hong Kong students should be learning what China has been doing all this time. But what we are against is a lopsided way of teaching. If you just introduce to students all the progress and all the economic development and all the space achievements, which is not enough. Students in Hong Kong also have to learn about the dark sides. They have to learn about the human rights, deprivation in China. Right. They have to learn about the Cultural Revolution, how the communist government did, what kind of evils they have done to Hong Kong, to Chinese citizens.
Right.
You remember during Mao's reign? Millions of people died.
65 million people have died, but that's some say 85 million people have died under the Chinese communists. Nothing has killed more people than
in the whole world.
In the World War II didn't kill that many people than the Chinese communists did to their own citizens. Then we have the suppression of rights, like you said. Then we have the Cultural Revolution. Then we have 1989 Tiananmen Square. A recently declassified cables from the Canadian Embassy had the ambassador there in Beijing. He was talking to the Swiss ambassador, and he was told from the Swiss ambassador that many high-level Beijing officials, including some members of the Politburo, came up to him and asked him, how can I get my assets and money to Switzerland? This was during June 4th. This was during the student crackdown. Will any of that be taught?
If according to the national curriculum, which they wanted to implement, it was not there. It was not there. And of course, after teachers' criticism, they did mention that there is no censorship. Teachers can teach whatever they like. But if the textbooks are written and controlled by the education department, people will exercise self-censorship. They will not publish books with all these dark sides of Chinese government because they won't be accepted by the central government. So gradually, the students will learn only one-sided views.
And so that's the danger.
That's the danger.
But wasn't that the government which took away the Chinese history as mandatory subject in the early year 2000? Then now they're complaining the student not knowing the country? I'm puzzled, actually. What happened?
You're talking about the Hong Kong SAR governments. I mean, not all of them have been this inept.
I think at the time that when I was in high school, it was in the late 90s, and then they complained about our generation being indifferent to the politics, and then now the students they have these liberal studies, and
now they're very in tune with politics, and
like,
now that's a bad thing.
Yeah, and now that is a bad thing. What happened? Do they have actually long-term goals for that?
They want them on their smartphones and iPads all day, not caring about what the government does. But unfortunately, we're not like other countries or cities. People here pay attention to the politics. We have like probably the #1 literacy rate in Asia, and I mean this is what comes with a highly educated, highly aware society.
Yeah.
But it's too much for them.
Yep, because communists always exercise their trying to educate people to become blind, blindly patriotic.
Right.
And that is what the kind of citizens they want. And of course, Hong Kong students are now getting more and more involved in politics, and they are more and more outspoken. And of course, they are afraid. They are scared to death.
What's your opinion about these students group these days? It seems to me that for me, I kind of sad to see that they have to start all this movement, because I think they should stay at school and enjoy their school life. But now they're spending months outside on the streets. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a sad phenomenon in Hong Kong, because we have experienced so many failures in the legislative council, and we have seen that within the legislative council, the councillors themselves, their hands are tied, and they can do very little to change. And so students, young people coming out to voice their appeals, to voice their demands, is a natural consequence.
Right.
And now that we have young people coming out, a whole generation of young people will no longer go back. And the Hong Kong government, the Chinese government have to deal with this, because they cannot turn a blind eye to these young people's demands. These will be the people who rule Hong Kong. All the others like us will die eventually, and the young people will come up. And if they still do not address their opinions and try to face their problems, the Hong Kong government is simply will become they cannot control. They will lose control.
Unfortunately, CY Leung's policy is to confront the students instead of engaging them in constructive dialogue, as we saw in the policy address, where he went right after them,
attacked them,
and it's ridiculous. I mean, yes, you can have an opinion, but do it in an op-ed or something else, maybe at a press conference, not as your opening monologue in your policy address. That means that's what's on your mind as number one. It's sad to see. Slightly shifting gears, we have a report today out of the South China Morning Post. Chinese universities ordered to ban textbooks that promote Western values. Now, here's the thing. China has engaged in a free market policy. That is a Western value. Capitalism is a Western value. They want them to go on this ideological campaign of Marxist socialist thinking. Well, Marxist socialism does not advocate capitalism, number one.
It's also a Western value.
I
mean, a Western idea.
And number two, what part of that country is actually Marxist socialist other than the media, which is a mouthpiece for the government, that's Marxist, and the actual one-party system? Everything else is not. They have a terrible health system. You would think they have the best universal health care on the planet. They don't. They don't have a good social security system. It's quite poor. The pension system doesn't do anything. There's still poverty, and wages are extremely low. Nothing. There's no class struggle. I mean, is this what's coming to Hong Kong eventually? This kind of stop thinking Western.
I don't
Or
think
has it begun already?
At this moment, they probably dare not say anything like that because even those pro-government members in the LegCo dare not say anything against the Western values.
Right.
They are still advocating all these values like freedoms of expression,
Right.
freedom of trade,
Right.
all these are within their agenda. So probably Hong Kong people will not go that far.
Okay.
By saying that we're going to return to Marxist society. Nobody
They did
will
in the
listen.
60s. They tried it in the 60s. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past some people because they tried it in the 60s, not knowing how good they had it under the colonial. As bad as it was still the best system in China at the time.
But last week we could see this from some local communist mouthpiece newspaper like a one-way
Po, Ta Kung Pao.
and they attack Hong Kong youth for the law faculty for their studies, the quality of their studies not good, their papers not good, and they also attack the ex-dean of a law faculty, saying that he's paid too much attention to the political environment in Hong Kong, but not doing his job. And it seems that it's really coming to university as well.
Yeah, okay, we can in fact ignore what Wen-Wei-Po says.
True, very true.
20 people read it in
It
the
is
city.
just political propaganda.
Yeah.
And in fact, what I have written an article about Wen-Wei-Po. The title goes like this: if Wen-Wei-Po starts to criticize you, then you start to believe that you are doing the right thing.
Right.
That's true.
So it's a compliment to Johannes Chan.
Yes. Because as they say, how do you know you're in the flak when they're shooting at you? That means you're over the target.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point. But I mean, for China, because we usually there's an effect to Hong Kong, whether it's direct or indirect. By going through this new path by President Xi of spread Marxist, socialist, Confucius values. But they still send their kids overseas. They're going to learn these Western values. The yearning for human freedom is not so much a Western value as it's
a universal.
It's a universal value. You can only suppress it for so long. What are they really afraid of?
They are hypocrites.
Of course.
Yeah, they're hypocrites. Like a lot of Hong Kong people are hypocrites. They're advocating that, they like China. They are against all these Hong Kong people who are fighting for freedoms and blah, blah, blah. And in fact, why they're not returning to China to live? And they are still hanging on in Hong Kong because they believe that
or going
Hong Kong,
overseas in the West.
They should go home.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the leaders, Chinese leaders, their spouses and their children are all now settled down in the USA,
Sierra Leone,
the UK,
Carrie Lam.
and all of them.
John.
Yeah, these are hypocrites.
Yes, they're the naked officials that they're called. I mean, most of these high level officials, public servants. I hate calling them officials, but we'll just go with that term. They have their entire family overseas, or they have secured their passports.
And all the money has been transferred there.
They keep just some here. The hypocrisy is just unbelievable, but their blind supporters will not call them out on it, saying if you're a real patriot, bring your family here, get your money here, sell your assets overseas, and invest in China.
Yeah,
even Li Ka-shing isn't stupid enough to put all his money in here. That's why he's domiciled suddenly in the Cayman Islands.
Yep, exactly.
Even he dare not speak either way. He's quite neutral.
Yeah, but he has seen the danger.
I think he has.
He has seen the danger. That's why he's transferring as well.
Has the teachers? Have teachers seen a creeping? How should I put this? Are they seeing mainland educated teachers trying to get jobs in Hong Kong and trying to fundamentally change the curriculum that they're trying to teach? Is that a danger right now, or is that just rumors?
It is a danger. It is a danger because now the government, the education department is advocating teaching Chinese in Putonghua.
Right.
And this policy is now creeping into schools gradually. More and more schools are taking up this policy. And we know that teaching Chinese in Putonghua, in fact, has not been proved to be effective in raising children's Chinese level. And there is no research which tells us that. In fact, teaching children in Cantonese in their own language is more effective. It's common sense. When the children come into the classroom, the teachers come into the classroom, they have to suddenly change channel by using a different dialogue, a different language, changing from Cantonese into Putonghua. That will definitely, hinder communication.
But isn't it a demand and supply problem? Because it probably is the parents that they want their kids to learn better Putonghua.
It's okay. Yeah, we can, implement Putonghua as a subject so that children can learn Putonghua well.
Right.
But it's strictly another matter to teach Chinese in Putonghua.
I see.
And we are advocating teaching Chinese in their mother tongue. Their mother tongue is Cantonese.
Right.
And that is the only language that children can learn best.
Final question. Do you think then that it's actually a waste of time to teach Putonghua? Do you see that as the future of business and the future of the world as learning Putonghua? Or is it more effective to learn English? Which one would you prefer?
Both.
Both.
I think.
But if you had to choose just one.
Why
Just
not
one.
force people to choose one?
Which you, no, but
English or Putonghua?
Yeah,
I
do you
would
think-
choose English, of course.
you think that
I
it's
would
still
choose-
going to
because
be
English is still an international language, and if our students, our young people, want to broaden their horizon, want to go out and see the world, they have to learn English, and that is the important language.
I have one final question.
All right, go ahead.
I would like to know about your view about the Chinese education for the ethnic minority, because it seems that Hong Kong is not doing anything for the ethnic minority to learn Chinese or Cantonese here. What is your PTA doing? Are they advocating or helping these ethnic minorities?
The PTA Professional Teachers Alliance has been established only less than a year.
I see.
Less
so
than
that
a
can
year.
be something that you guys
we
can
of course
look
we
into.
advocate that students of all nations should have equal opportunity to learn anything, and they should have equal opportunity to get into universities. And now that a lot of minority students do not have the chance, especially when it comes to joining the tertiary education,
Right.
when they all demand Chinese language
Yes.
as the entry requirement.
Right.
So we are trying. I work with Fermi Wong. You remember Fermi
Yeah,
Wong?
Yes, from Unison. Yes.
And I worked with her for quite some time, and I help her to implement more Chinese materials in kindergarten, in the primary school,
Right.
to teach these minority students.
I see.
I think the segregation of minority students needs to end. There needs to be
I think so, too.
immersion.
It should.
That's where it should begin. I don't know why it's taking so long to begin that. Anyways, we have to end, not end the show, but end this interview portion. Thank you, James
Thank
Hon,
you.
for coming
Thank
in.
you, James.
My pleasure.
And of course, our final segment is our prestigious Shame on You Award. We give it to the most ridiculous, or the most stupid, or the most, whatever person. Well, I think Cheng Chek-yen of the Silent Majority advocating an end to English in
I
Hong
second
Kong
that.
Okay.
should receive it.
Yeah.
I think it's unanimous.
Shame on you.
You just received the Shame on You award from our beloved Tree Gun. And that's the end of the show. Please subscribe on YouTube. You can go to Mimi Hong Kong on YouTube for that. How can you not remember this?
I can't remember.
Facebook.com/IonHK Pod. Twitter @IonHK Pod. Mr. Han, is there any website or Facebook you want to plug?
My
Yeah,
Any?
well, I'm
Depends.
James Hon dot Facebook, is that?
Yes,
Yeah, James, you can
Facebook.com.
fetch me on
Just
James
search on
on
Facebook,
Facebook, James
James
Hon.
Hon.
and the defense Hong Kong freedom.
Defense, the League in Defense of Hong Kong's Freedoms.
And you can
recognize my head.
you can find them there as well. And of course, we'll be back again next week. And I'm glad to be back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.